We don't have enough natural resources for those who are naturally born here. You may have to leave Ecuador, sir, if you're foreigners. All foreigners are need, and it has happened during coups in Africa, to where something has been some countries have been taken over, and they were like, all foreigners, you have 24 hours to get up out of here, or we coming for you. And so now you got to get on the plane. That's where, when people laugh and mock at me and others for looking at the value of a second passport or second citizenship, it's funny where you're at home where you're still sipping lemonade and tea. It's cool. But when the pandemic broke out and you guys were stuck in the United States, everybody else in the world were already on shutdown. We had less body counts of individuals in the hospital or deceased. And you sit back in Americans, one state is shut down, another state isn't, and everybody's in panic. And you're like, man, I am not trying to live in that environment. So if you had a chance with a second passport to go to Paraguay or Uruguay during the pandemic, it might be a little quieter, but you knew that if anything broke out, 9 times out of 10, it wouldn't happen in that region. And right now, you also have to take consideration the beauty of, in South America, there aren't any countries at war with each other in South America. For years, the closest that you have right now in South America is Venezuela trying to take some of the land from Guyana, because Guyana has been discovered, the last 5 years, all the oil that's off the coast of Guyana. And so Venezuela is trying to take some of that land, but America has planes out there. Parts of Europe have military out there, and Brazil already have their military blocking the one area, the one part of Guyana that you can get in and out far as military. There's only one road in and one road out, and you have to go through Brazil to go through the land part with the military through Guyana. And Brazil has already put their military right there. No, Venezuela, this is not going to happen. You're not going to be bringing wars here to our continent. You have your own oil. Go ahead.
You've been to Cuba, and I think before you came on, Austin was asking about Cuba. What do you think about that? Because my things are, they may put a nuclear power there, but how safe is Cuba? What I found out when I was there was I didn't really see no processed foods. It seemed like everything was natural. Like I don't want to say, in a sense, self-sufficient. We are dependent upon an import where they're like, well, we haven't been getting it for 50 years.
To a certain extent, I have to agree with you, Fearless. But then you also have to realize, to another extent, Cuba gets a lot of their food and their supplies imported. That's why you see, and also realize, if you go to Cuba, you're standing in line for the government to feed you.
Yeah, that is true.
Cuba is a country of lines. And I didn't understand when Taylor Made Dreams said that. He said you have the line people and no line people. I was like, what do you mean? When I got to Cuba, I understood you will get up at 1:30 in the morning in Cuba, stand in line for rice, for chicken. Am I kidding?
No.
Every time you're in Cuba, there's nothing but lines all around. With the no line people and the people in Cuba, just imagine people running to Cuba trying to escape there and becoming a person of the lines. Like you might not get your rice, your toilet paper, and your 2 pieces of chicken until 12 in the afternoon, and you've been standing in line since 1:30 in the morning. That's Cuba, all day, every day. That's all you'll see throughout Cuba are people in line. Now, those who live in the farm areas and are more self-sufficient, I agree with you. But then the Cuban government came and took over their land. Oh, you got 50 cattle? We need that. We're taking over because that belongs to the people now.
But that'll happen in the United States. You don't think they'll do that? Eminent domain?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Come to your farm and say, that's our farm now.
Yep. They've done it in the past. Other countries have done it in the past if they need to protect the, like in the NFL, protect the shield. Nobody's above the shield.
Exactly.
And in the United States, nobody's above the flag.
So do you think that there's certain countries out there that may have policies in place to protect expats from being drafted?
I really believe that many countries in South America don't have that connection with the United States to, or even have the manpower, such as Paraguay or Uruguay, Paraguay, Colombia, Venezuela, even Brazil. They don't have the manpower to waste on pushing people out. And I want to tell you the truth about this in all sincerity. That is the most detrimental part in regards to our discussion. You ready? Most Americans ain't going nowhere anyway.
Nope.
You do not have to worry about most Americans coming through Mexico, then most of Central America coming through the jungles of from Panama down through Colombia, and then spread. Most Americans ain't doing that. Most Americans scared to go from Alabama to New Orleans. Most Americans are not built for travel. We talk a good travel game. We're not really built for travel. If it ain't a car, you mean I gotta have a passport to do this? You mean I gotta walk for most Americans, if the shoe were on the other foot, they would never. We talk about immigrants walking and traveling and jumping on the back of trains, all those thousands of miles to get to America. But if Americans had to do it, we ain't got the balls to do it. We ain't built like that.
Nope.
We ain't built this for our family survival. Like, we talk good about family, but we ain't built like that for family survival. Many people will leave their kids on the edge of a road and run after and run for their family, where people in South America brought the whole family, grandma, cousins, Nook and them, and walked from South America all the way to North America to the borders. You saw babies, you saw husbands, you saw wives, you saw boyfriends, you saw grandmamas. When it come to Americans, we will leave our grandmama right there. So most Americans, let's be real with it. Most Americans ain't going nowhere. They will sit up there and they will see a rocket coming their way, and they will cry and they will be sad. But when it comes to actually preparing themselves like we're doing, they ain't going nowhere. So we don't have. In other words, the reason why I'm saying this, and don't forget your thought fillers. The reason why I'm saying this, most countries are not going to send back Americans to be drafted, because most Americans ain't going nowhere anyway. It's gonna be a few Austins coming, just a few more Americans down here in South America, but it ain't gonna be that many to make a major impact on the economic structure of most South American countries.
And I'm agreeing with you, Andre, on that. I was thinking of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. People, they knew it was coming. Some of them like, we ain't leaving. Grandma stuck in there. I ain't coming to get
died just because they didn't leave.
Yep.
A lot of them did die because they didn't. Yep. That's a good example.
Yeah. And even when there was floods, they could have crossed over. It was very few of them that said, I'm gonna leave out. I'm gonna go. They just stuck it out in the rain. They said, we're gonna do these floods. So imagine that everywhere, and people are doing that.
So you brought up relocating, Andre. Let's talk about the steps to relocating. What are some essential steps that someone needs to take to do what you did, which is relocate to another country while we're anticipating a global conflict before that happens?
One thing that first thing I did, and Fearless can attest to this because he probably did the same thing, mentally as well as taking the steps, I made America my second home.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in America 3 months. I lived in America 8 months instead of 12 months. Then I narrowed it down to 6 months instead of 12 months. Then 9 months instead of 12 months. And then 0 months instead of 12 months. I made America my second home instead of my first home. America was the place I came to make money, stack my cheddar, and go to my first home. Yep. Even if I was only in my first home for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. But America, in my mind and how I treat my America's country, but I treated her like she was my second home country. And now I'm just a tourist to my home country now. So like, I've been back there in 4 years, almost going on 5. And so I'll be going back this year. I'm a tourist in America. Technology has changed, the buildings, the neighborhoods, everything has changed. I'm a tourist. I'm walking through my own city taking photos like, oh, wow, when they built this? I'm a tourist in all sincerity in my own country, because I purposely made the United States my second home. It was still my home, but I didn't treat it like it was my initial home or my only home. I went there, I stacked my money, get my money right, and all of a sudden, as the more money I made, the less I need to be there in the States. And I was being able to manipulate my job and my career opportunities to where I'm less and less, and to where I'm not there at all. That's exactly how I did it.